Okay, great. So welcome and thank you for joining Ingrid and I on our second B2B Sales Clinic, the last one for the year. It's going to run this time for 30 minutes. I think the last one ran for 20 and it's a little bit tight on time, especially for questions. So we decided to keep it short and sweet. Keep it to 30 minutes and we'll answer questions at the end of the webinar. Feel free to add any questions as we go into the chat area of the webinar and we can answer those at the end too. So before we start, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Richard Forrest. I run Forrest Marketing Group, B2B prospecting service and contact center up in Sydney. And I'd like to just take a moment to introduce Ingrid Maynard, who is also presenting on this. Ingrid is the founder of a company called The Sales Doctor. She's been in business for a number of years now. And in fact, she and I crossed paths many years ago when Ingrid was running a company very much like FMG, and we stayed in touch, found that we had very similar beliefs and philosophies, and we sort of maintained touch and contact, and we've been working together for a while now. So with the Sales Doctor, which is Ingrid's business now, she works with both B2C and B2B organizations, I think, companies such as Officeworks, Bunnings, GM Holden, Electrolux, and her function and role, or her belief, is to transform salespeople and sales process. And she has a real passion, I guess, for making sales fun and easier, and to help salespeople to become the best version of themselves and really successful. So it is a real pleasure to be co-presenting with Ingrid today. Always a pleasure to work with you.
Thanks, Richard. What an introduction.
Yeah. Our topic today is really around kicking off 2021 and making sure you have a really great start to the new year, putting yourself ahead of your competition and setting yourself up for a really good calendar year, not so much financial year. But one of the beauties in Australia is we've kind of got 2 years. You've got the calendar year, January to December. We've got the financial year, July to June. It allows you to reset both times. So I'm going to jump in, Ingrid, and start the questions with you and see how we go. So my first question, I guess, is there a silver bullet for B2B sales teams to get their sales cranking in 2021? And if so, in your opinion, what is the silver bullet?
Oh, don't you love that question? I have no doubt that people think that you're a silver bullet as well. Yeah, so for my mind, the silver bullet is always about action. So when it comes to getting yourselves ready to hit the ground running in January, for my mind, what I'd be spending the remaining weeks of this year on would be really making sure that my March quarter is fully optimized. And so I think that there's a few things that any team and salesperson can do. And that is, first of all, have a look at the pipeline across that period of time, and then work on how you get what you need to do with it. So first of all, is there enough in the pipeline? So businesses should always be looking at 2 to 3 times the value of their sales targets as a conservative, in order to, at various stages across their sales pipeline, in order to maximize their opportunities for conversion. So if there's not enough, if you don't have 2 to 3 times, then the focus really between now and the end of the year really needs to be about prospecting, and it needs to be on, building that pipeline of opportunities. So new opportunities, getting more into the pipeline. The second part is about, identifying gaps in the pipeline and then progressing those opportunities and then taking action. And then the final part is, okay, so how can I set myself up to win? And so some of those opportunities, take some time to really get across the line. So it's worth investing the time now to set yourself up really well.
It's an interesting number with the 2 to 3 times the value of your sales target in your pipeline at any one time, and that's nice because it's measurable. And so if you know that you've got a sales target of $10,000 or $100,000 over a period, you can make sure that you've got that in your pipeline beforehand. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And with Christmas coming,
Mm.
is there really that much that a sales team can do to drive sales between now and January, or should they just wait until the new year to get busy?
What a great question, because I think that there's a, especially in this country, and you and I were talking before this session about, the wind down towards Christmas, and then that, that lovely time that a lot of us has, around the Christmas New Year period to kind of relax and just sort of recalibrate. But now is not that time. Now is the time to really make sure that, we're setting ourselves up for a great January. So yeah, I think that there's plenty to be done, and now can be a fantastic opportunity for a lot of people to be available to catch up. Now, there are some strategies that I would be suggesting that you focus your activity on. So not just meetings for the sake of meetings, but making those meetings count. So the first thing is to identify those opportunities that have the highest potential for growth in 2021, and making it a priority to arrange a face-to-face meeting if you can. But at the very least, a meeting like this. Certainly, if you're in the first 3 months of a role, because there's been a lot of movement over this year, 2020, where salespeople have been redeployed. So if you're new into a role, there's never been a better time to really use that as an opportunity to get out and to get those opportunities, or prospective clients, current clients who you've inherited, to get to know you and to develop a relationship there. And also, look, work smarter, not harder. So if you've got maybe 2-3 weeks left in the year, then maximize your time. Prioritize the people that you think are going to be best met in a face-to-face environment. And for those others, make sure that you're working this sort of space so that you can make sure that you're meeting with more people rather than less, using Zoom or Teams.
Yeah, and presumably when you're talking about higher value, the high value people to meet, that can be existing customers where there's a good opportunity to build a bigger sale from that customer, rather than necessarily looking for a brand new prospect, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Richard. And I think that that's where sales teams need to be constantly, in communication and deepening their ecosystems, is what I kind of call them, because they need to be across not only, the 1 or 2 key decision makers. That's where they get blindsided. So if they can deepen their relationships with key stakeholders and influencers, not only in that organization, but around that organization, so that they're increasing their sphere of influence. That's really important.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's good. And what if the sales team is based in Victoria, where, and also around the country, I guess, but especially in Victoria, which has just come out of lockdown, where face-to-face meetings are still a bit cautious.
Yeah.
And in some cases they may not be allowed. What's the best way of handling that?
Yeah, well, yeah, so they are allowed. They might not be allowed in the office. So I
Right.
think that is an excuse for a salesperson not to be getting out is now null and void. Look, what a fantastic reason to make an opportunity to meet. Oh, look, we're out of lockdown. Be fantastic to get in front of you. Let's go for a coffee. Let's enjoy the sunshine. Let's go for a walk. Let's make some time to actually sit down and get to know one another in person. For a lot of 2021, new business relationships have been forged over this kind of medium or over the phone. So it's a fantastic opportunity to get to know people in person. And I think that when you do get together with people, it's really about understanding their world. So, it's a great opportunity to get a richer insight. So focusing in on, what's changed for them. What has 2021 meant for them in terms of the ways that they're working, that they'll carry into, 2020, that they'll carry into 2021. What are some of their priorities now based on the year that they've had? What do they now need to do in 2021? So you get that broader perspective. And the other thing that I'd be really, being curious about with those meetings is, what are some of the challenges that they know they're going to face, and how might you be part of the solution to some of those challenges as well? So I think, gosh, Victoria, you've got a great opportunity to get in front of people and to really get to know their world.
I like what you said there. You touched on the excuses, and I think that's actually a really critical point. It's because people and organizations can use excuses such as there's no point in holding meetings because people don't want to meet. There's no point in
Yes,
something because of December and January. Let's leave it. And actually, they are all excuses, aren't they?
they are excuses. Yeah, you and I have both heard those golden nuggets for years. But
Yes.
that people do want to meet, and it's a great time of the year to do so. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
No, that's great. So I've got a few questions for you now, Richard. So, like you were just saying, many people think that everything closes down, everyone's away in January. So what makes you say that January is actually such a great time to get selling?
It's an interesting thing because people are away in January. The thing that's wrong with that expression is that everybody's away in January, which is never the case. And the reason I say that it is such a good time to be selling is because every year we look at the results we get in January compared with any other time of the year. And every year it is the best time for us to get appointments for our clients.
There you go.
Somewhere between a 27 and 45% increase in leads generated in that time.
Can I just repeat that? A 27% to 45% increase.
Yeah.
That dispels all of those myths right there.
It does. I think there are some caveats and some things around it. So we have to work harder to get those appointments in the sense that we have to make more phone calls because more people are away. But it's not like everybody is away and there's spin effects rolling down the streets of our capital or anything like that.
Yeah.
People are there. And you just need to make more calls to reach them. When you speak to them, it's usually a quiet time for most people at that time. They've set their New Year's resolutions recently. They typically are thinking strategically about the year ahead and about the business. And so they're interested in having a conversation about things that can help them improve their business at that time. So whilst we make more phone calls to speak to a person, we get a far higher conversion of people spoken to into turning into meetings for our clients. So it is the most fertile time of the year for us, and therefore I'm assuming for everybody else. But most people tend to use it as an excuse and say, actually, there's no point in doing anything now. It's just not worth it. And if you look at, if I make 10 phone calls, how many people will I speak? The number will be lower in January than it would be in February or March. But the number of people who you speak to who say, yes, I'd like to meet, if you've got a good sales proposition for them, will increase. So it's actually a much better time of the year. And it really is one of the keys to having a great 2021.
Oh gosh, I can only imagine. I mean, that's half the battle, and that's the bit that a lot of salespeople really struggle with. Is that first meeting and getting in front of those people. So wow, I just love how you've just dispelled that myth. It's stats, like it's proven. Year on year, you've been doing this a while.
Yeah.
So how does it apply? Does it apply to every business or?
Actually, that's a really good question. And the answer is probably no. Well, the answer is no, it doesn't.
Right.
So if you're in a business where, for example, you're talking to retail or to cafes or restaurants or people like that early in January, probably not the right time to be on the phone to them.
That's a good point.
They're just too busy. If you've got a target market which is small, there might only be 100 or 150 companies that you really want to talk to. That you will find too many people are away out of that small number to make it worthwhile. But having said that, I would still be looking to get on the front foot with them as early as possible in the year. Because if you think about December and January are a bad time for sales. If you accept that, you're actually writing off almost 18% of the year, the sales year, by doing that. So the longer you can keep things running in December and the earlier you can get back for your market in January, the better you're going to be.
Oh, I just love how you said that. If you accept that as true, you've written off 18% of your selling year. And again, when I think that language really speaks to sales leaders and sales people because they live and die by the numbers. They live and die by the results. And that's a big number.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what if the sales team is taking holidays in early January? Is there anything that can be done then?
Yeah, rescind their leave is probably the first thing I'd say. Um, so that's right. I actually think that people want to take time off at the end of the year, and of course they want to be able to get away. But there is, even if your entire sales team are away for 2 or 3 weeks in January,
Yeah.
there is still a simple solution. That is to get out there and start prospecting and getting somebody setting up appointments for the sales team for when they get back. So their first day back in the office, they hit the ground running, rather than leaving it for 2 weeks after that. So somebody comes back middle of January, they start setting up meetings. By the time they actually get to those meetings, it's probably the 30th of January, somewhere like that. Whereas if you can start that activity even in December,
Yes.
and have it running in January, so that when the sales team come back in January, they've got a full calendar of opportunities to go and meet with, then again, you're reclaiming as much of that 17-18% of the year that is otherwise written off. So get the appointments started so the sales team hit the ground running early is my suggestion.
I of course I agree with that. Absolutely. And we've got some really good questions there that kind of relate to some of this stuff. So I'm sure we'll get to those. So thank you, Sarah, for those questions. But what things can companies be doing to give them a great start to 2021?
Yeah, I think we both talked about it. I guess I'll try and bring it together, is shorten that 17%, make as little of December and as little of January a write-off in terms of sales activity.
Yeah.
So try to do everything you can, because you can't come in on the 5th or 6th of January and go, right, now I'm going to start my selling activity and everything's going to be good. The reason we get good results in January is partly because of the work we do in December, because we will talk to people in December who say, look, I'm a bit busy right now, I'm thinking about going on holiday, can you call me in January? Yeah, I'll be back on the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. So we've set those calls up in advance, and those people are then quiet, etc. So I think the things to do are to be really active in December, really active in January for as long as possible. Don't buy into the urban myth that everybody is away, it's a bad time to be selling, everything closes down. You can do that, and that probably is what your competitors are going to do. So if you buck that trend and you keep being active in the market in December, and you start off in January, you're going to be way ahead of your competitors by the time they get round to getting their sales team back and starting to get appointments and going out to see their customers and their prospects. It's going to be February, it's going to be end of January, February, and you'll have had probably 3, 4, 5 weeks on them if you put the December and January together to do that. So you get the market to yourself. You get the activity going. People who are busy will tell you it's a good time to call back in later in January or something, but that's not a wasted phone call. They're ready to talk to you when they come back. We're back on the phones from the 5th, Tuesday the 5th of January, and I know we'll be talking to people from then onwards. So don't buy into the myth. Get in there and be active. Get your sales team or somebody doing that prospecting activity or setting up meetings for your sales team as early as possible.
Fantastic. I couldn't agree more, of course. I really couldn't. Nothing beats action.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. And as you say, I think we've got a number of questions. I think it's Sarah rather than Sarah, but I'm not sure.
Sarah.
I'm not sure. I'm going to guess with Sarah, who said, what is the right balance of email campaigns and calls for success, or are we mainly focused on calls and meetings today? So look, that's a great question, Sarah. Ingrid, do you want to talk about that, talk to that, or would you like me to talk to it first?
Yeah, well, I'm more than happy for you to talk to it first, and then I'll jump in.
Okay. So yeah, primarily, Sarah, you're right. Our medium at FMG is phone, but email is also important. I think that both are very, very important strategies for engaging with an audience. What I would say is it's much easier for somebody to ignore or throw away an email, especially if it's a cold email and they've never heard from you before. However, even if they get an email from you and they know who you are, it registers on some perspective, on some level. So my suggestion is always phone is first, have the conversation, build the rapport, and then start to use email. and then use that email to fill in between the conversation. So I don't think one is ever right and the other is wrong. I think you should use both of them in concert. So what we tend to recommend to our clients is that we use email tactically when it's requested, and we also recommend it's used strategically for an email campaign to nurture people who are not yet ready to buy. How frequently you use that email is really down to your market and down to you. But I would never rely just on email, in the same way as I wouldn't rely on phone calls, because there are times when your prospects aren't ready. You know they don't want to talk to you just yet, but you want to keep yourself top of mind.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is always start with the phone call. I don't think that an email to introduce yourself is going to give you a noticeable advantage, but follow up with email and nurture those prospects with good content on an ongoing basis, but intersperse that with phone calls. Ingrid, have you anything to add?
Yeah, look, I think that some salespeople, and I don't think it's you, Sarah, but some salespeople really hide behind emails, and they use it as an alternative for any kind of personal contact. And as Richard said, it's really difficult to form any kind of one-on-one rapport. You can't really get to know people. I mean, how many emails have been misinterpreted even with the best of intentions? So it's just fraught. And it's certainly no alternative for any kind of personal interaction. So my strong recommendation around emails is that they're used as a supplement to either summarize a conversation that you've had, to set next activity, and like Richard said, as a strategy in and of itself to continue to nurture and remain top of mind. But as a selling tool, I don't think that there's any replacement for picking up the phone or having a conversation like this or in person, for really being able to get underneath what's really going on in an organization so that you can set yourself up for, being front and center with a solution.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you, Ingrid. Sarah, I think you also wanted to know whether the appointments are set by phone or by email. Following on from what Ingrid said, yes, we set our appointments by phone. We do occasionally get some people who will reply by email, but typically it's not. In terms of numbers, they're very variable, but I can certainly give you some what would you call them, standard metrics.
Yeah.
I would expect our guys to make around 15 phone calls per hour, 15 to 20 phone calls per hour in the B2B space. And out of that, they'll have a conversation with the right decision maker, probably 3, 4, 5 times per hour. So you can imagine you pick up the phone, you call Ingrid, she's not available. So you've had a phone call, but no conversation. So the number of times that we have to make phone calls that aren't answered is quite high. It's about 3 to 1. So I would expect about 5 conversations per hour. Out of those conversations, how many of them become prospects really comes down to your market, your product, the saleability and appeal of it to the target market, and also what you consider is a qualified appointment. So if for you a qualified appointment is anybody who will have coffee with you just for 10 minutes, then your conversion rate will be very high. Quality of the leads is probably going to be quite low though. At the other end of the scale, you could have somebody who's very highly qualified and they're much harder to come across. So our approach is to take a somewhat strong approach, strict approach in terms of qualification. So we pick up the people who are ready to buy now, but we also pick up those people who are interested but looking to know more. And in general, across all of our campaigns, roughly 1 in 20, I think it's about 1 in 19 decision makers that we speak to becomes an appointment for one of our clients. Having said that, we've got some campaigns where it's 1 in 4, 5 or 6 people spoken to, and others where it's 1 in 30, 40 or sometimes 50 people we have to speak to. But if you use as a ballpark, 1 in 20 is probably a good number, but always remember with statistics, just because you've spoken to 20 decision makers doesn't mean you'll have your first appointment set. You might have to get to 23 or 24 or 25 before the numbers work.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing I'd say too, Sarah, just on that is, for salespeople, just to understand that it's just that first conversation. So while a prospecting team such as Forrest Marketing Group can do all of that hard legwork and get you in there, it's still the responsibility of the salesperson, like a baton changing hands, to really pick that up and then do the work that's required of them to really, nurture that opportunity and take it from there. So I think, that in terms of conversions, final conversions, because you've got the calls to meeting or appointment conversions, but then a sales conversion, well, that's really up to the salesperson.
Yeah, good point. Thank you, Sarah, for the question. And Barry Lira.
Hello, Barry.
I hope I've pronounced your name correctly, but you've said where it's not feasible or affordable to get face-to-face with your prospects, any hints on attracting that person to come to a Zoom meeting and remain engaged? Ingrid, do you want to talk to that one?
Yeah, definitely. I think it comes back down. It's so lovely to see you here, Barry. Miss you. Yeah, so just on that, I think that, again, it comes down to the quality of the conversations that you've had before. And so again, this is where email falls down. It's not a replacement for a real conversation. At some point, chat, email, all of those things are not going to have the same level of connection and cut through that a phone call or a Zoom opportunity will have. So I think phone calls are the first precursor, and then a Zoom, if you can limit the time on a Zoom so that people don't feel like they're going to be on there for a long time, that the purpose and the intention of that Zoom conversation is really clear for both parties, and that there's a calendar invitation that both parties have obviously opted into. I think that that's really important. So again, just making sure that it's the same in some ways as the way that you conduct a face-to-face. But because it's over Zoom, we've got to also bear in mind that people have Zoom fatigue, that they're online for a lot longer, particularly in Victoria. That's been our MO for the last 9 months. So we've just got to kind of bear that in mind and make it short and sharp, to the point, and a really clear outcome for that person.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the key is the initial conversation. And remember, when you're trying to set up an appointment, even if it's for yourself, you're selling the appointment, not the product or service. That's what comes on the Zoom. So don't get caught into I need to sell my service here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree with Ingrid. It's all about have that conversation. Get them onto the Zoom meeting. We recommend a follow-up process where through email you confirm the meeting, and even an hour before, just make sure the person is there. Because when you go to somebody's office for a face-to-face meeting, if they're not at their desk at that time, somebody will go and find them for you. Whereas if you rock up on a Zoom meeting and they just don't show up, you don't know whether they're ill, they're snubbing you, they're just out of the office making a cup of coffee. It's hard. So if that happens, phone the company, double check the person's in that day, see if they can find them and shepherd them into the Zoom meeting for you.
Yeah.
Grand. I think that's all the questions we've got, and we've got to finish 2 minutes early by the looks of things, which is pretty good. Stickler for timekeeping. So Ingrid, any final words from you?
Look, I'd just really like to wish everyone a very successful run home to the Christmas period. And I can only imagine how special it's going to be this year for everyone. And hopefully 2021 brings a lot more promise and a lot more possibility for everyone.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's I'd echo those sentiments. Have a great Christmas and New Year ahead. Keep the activity going all the way up to as close as Christmas as you can, and as soon after you can get back in the new year. And have a great 2021. And we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar in 2021.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Anthony. You too. Great to see you here. Merry Christmas to you. And I'll look forward to seeing everyone. And Richard, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise, Ingrid. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Christmas and New Year.
Bye.
Bye.